Hey there, welcome to Starz Recapped. Today we're diving into the plot of an American action fantasy film titled The Old Guard, which hit the screens in 2020. Spoiler, watch out, major plot details ahead. The story opens in a dark room where four mercenaries lie dead on the floor. Among them is Andy, who begins to reflect on all the times she's died before and wonders if this might finally be the end. Flashback to one day earlier in Morocco. Andy meets up with Booker to discuss a potential new mission. She's reluctant, weary of endless battles, and tired of fighting. But Booker persuades her to at least return to the hotel and talk things over with the team. On the way, Andy spots a group of girls who unknowingly snap a picture that includes her. She quickly makes up a reason to borrow their phone and deletes any trace of herself from the photo. She knows how important it is to stay hidden. Back at the hotel, they reunite with longtime companions Nikki and Joe. While the others are eager to take on the job, Andy remains skeptical. She doesn't trust the man offering it, Copley, and reminds them of their golden rule: never work for the same employer twice. Despite her reservations, the team eventually convinces Andy to at least hear Copley out. She agrees to go with Booker to the meeting, just to see what he has to say. Sometime later, Andy and Booker sit at a quiet cafe, keeping a low profile while Nikki and Joe observe from the hotel window across the street, just in case something goes wrong. Copley soon arrives and lays everything on the table. He shares that he took a break from the CIA when his wife fell ill, and after she passed away, he couldn't bring himself to return. Now, he funds private missions on his own, and this time, he wants their help. The job? Rescue a group of hostages being held in South Sudan. When Copley mentions how many lives they could save, Andy, still skeptical, finally agrees to take on the mission. That night, the team flies to South Sudan and waits for darkness to fall. Moving like shadows, they silently eliminate the guards one by one. They slip through a fence, take down a few more enemies, and breach the building with a small explosive charge. But once inside, the team finds nothing. No hostages. Just silence. Andy's instincts kick in. It's a trap! A moment later, soldiers flood the room and open fire. The team goes down hard, blood spilling across the floor. Believing their mission is complete, the soldiers turn away. Then something unbelievable happens. The bullets begin to pop out of the team's bodies. Wounds heal in seconds. One by one, the four rise from the floor, angry, unstoppable, and very much alive. With ruthless precision and brutal efficiency, they eliminate every soldier in the room, unfazed by any pain. Copley watches the entire fight unfold through surveillance cameras until Andy notices one of them and smashes it. By morning, the team buries their blood-soaked clothes in the desert sand and gathers to discuss their next move, now fully aware that someone has betrayed them and they're being watched. Andy insists that they must find Copley and eliminate him. He now knows their biggest secret. They are immortal warriors, centuries old, with the power to heal from any wound. They've lived in the shadows, using their abilities to help others as mercenaries. But for Andy, this betrayal is the final straw. Once they deal with Copley, she's ready to walk away from the fight for good. Meanwhile, in Afghanistan, U.S.-famed soldier Niall Freeman is on a mission with her unit to investigate a possible hostage situation involving a group of women. When she reaches them, the women silently point her toward a man inside the building. Niall and her team breach the room, quickly shooting the suspect in the chest. As she approaches to confirm the kill, the man suddenly springs up and slashes her throat. Her comrades rush to help, desperately trying to stop the bleeding. But Niall dies on the spot, or so it seems. At that very moment, elsewhere, Andy and the team are asleep on a moving train when they're all hit by the same vivid dream, Niall's death. At the same time, in the medic tent, Niall wakes up, very much alive, haunted by visions of people she's never met. The team realizes what this means. Another immortal has awakened. Andy, however, is frustrated. This new development could delay their mission, and she's eager to finish things with Copley. But the others believe the dreams are a sign and that they must find Niall. Reluctantly, Andy agrees to track her down alone, while the rest of the team continues the search for Copley. The team agrees to regroup later in France. Meanwhile, Niall begins to notice a shift. Her friends are clearly uneasy around her. Despite having her throat slashed, she doesn't even have a scar. Word of the incident spreads quickly, and military officials decide to send her to Germany for further testing. Upset and confused, Niall returns to her tent only to find that her belongings have already been packed by her fellow soldiers, making her feel even more isolated and unwanted. Elsewhere in England, pharmaceutical mogul Stephen Merrick is delivering a sleek presentation on advanced stem cell research. He promises a future where human disease can be eradicated and lifespans extended. All he needs is more financial backing. After the presentation, Merrick meets privately with Copley, who shows him shocking surveillance footage. Andy and her team coming back to life after being gunned down. But Merrick isn't impressed. He's skeptical, insisting that video proof alone won't convince anyone. People will just assume it's fake or doctored. What he wants is undeniable physical evidence. Merrick orders Copley to capture the Immortals and bring them to him alive. Back in Afghanistan, as Nile waits for a helicopter to transport her to Germany, Andy ambushes the area. She swiftly knocks out the guards and then renders Nile unconscious as well. When Nile regains consciousness, she finds herself stuffed in the trunk of a military vehicle, with Andy behind the wheel. Wasting no time, she kicks open the back and tumbles onto the road. Andy slams the brakes and chases her down. As Nile tries to escape, Andy ends the chase by calmly shooting her in the back of the head. Moments later, Nile's body begins to heal. She returns to life. In response, she stabs Andy in the shoulder. Andy barely flinches and simply says, "If you want answers, you're coming with me." The two board a cargo plane bound for France, one secretly involved in a trafficking operation. Andy calls her team to report that she has found the new Immortal, but there's still no word on Copley. Before they take off, she smashes her phone to avoid being tracked. During the flight, Andy explains a few truths to Nile. Their team has no idea why they're immortal or how long it lasts. They only know they've been alive for centuries. But Nile isn't satisfied with these vague, unsettling answers. Later, while Andy sleeps, Nile quietly ties her to the seat and forces the pilot at gunpoint to fly the plane back. But when Andy wakes up, she calmly speaks to the pilot in Russian, telling him to play dead. Andy then pretends to shoot him, causing the plane to nosedive. Nile panics. Andy claims she can fly the plane, so Nile unbinds her. Instantly, the pilot comes back to life and regains control. With their course back on track toward France, Nile and Andy get into a brutal mid-air fight. Despite Nile's military training, Andy's centuries of combat experience give her the upper hand. She wounds Nile badly, just enough to force her to calm down. As Nile watches her wounds heal rapidly, the reality of her new life sinks in. Andy finally gets through to her. Later, they arrive in France and reunite with the rest of the team in an old abandoned church. Over dinner, Nile begins to understand more about this mysterious group she's now a part of. Booker reveals that he became immortal in the 18th century. Nikki and Joe share their own history, once sworn enemies during the Crusades, now inseparable companions. Andy tells Nile that she's the oldest among them, though she's lived so long she no longer remembers her actual age. The team also explains a crucial truth. Immortality isn't forever. Rarely, after centuries, an immortal's healing simply stops. No warning, no explanation. When that happens, it means their time has finally come. Later that night, everyone settles down to sleep, except Andy, who keeps watch from a chair in the living room. In the middle of the night, Nile jolts awake from a disturbing nightmare. Her scream wakes the team. She describes what she saw: a woman trapped in a coffin, endlessly drowning beneath the ocean. The others immediately recognize the vision. It was Quinn. Andy explains that Quinn was once her closest ally. Together, they had fought to rescue women falsely accused of witchcraft, but they were captured and condemned as witches themselves. When their captors discovered they couldn't die, they devised a cruel punishment. The two women were separated, and Quinn was sealed in an iron coffin and thrown into the sea. Since then, Quinn has been trapped in a never-ending cycle of death and rebirth, drowning again and again for centuries. Shaken by the horror of it, Nile rushes outside to process what she's heard. Andy follows and tries to comfort her, reminding her that the team is all she has now. But before they can say more, headlights appear in the distance. Copley's soldiers are here. As Copley watches from a surveillance van nearby, the women rush back inside. They quickly realize something's wrong. Joe and Nikki are missing, and Booker has just been hit by a grenade. Though he's slowly healing, he's down for now. While Nile stays behind to help Booker, Andy charges straight into the fray. With centuries of skill and zero fear of pain, she cuts through the enemy soldiers in a brutal, lightning-fast assault. Watching from his van, Copley is stunned and afraid. He orders a retreat, realizing he may have underestimated who he's dealing with. After the battle, the remaining team packs up their gear and begins searching for a new place to hide. Meanwhile, Joe and Nikki regain consciousness in the back of a van, surrounded by hostile soldiers. The guards mock them for being a couple and physically separate them when they try to share a kiss. Soon the van arrives at an airport, but when the doors swing open, a bloody surprise awaits. Joe and Nikki have killed every soldier inside, despite being handcuffed the entire time. Copley has them flown to England, where they're delivered straight to Merrick. With cruel delight, Merrick stabs both of them for fun, explaining that he plans to experiment on their bodies until he unlocks the secret to eternal life and extending the human lifespan. Afterward, Joe and Nikki are sedated and sent to a laboratory. Merrick then orders Copley to capture the rest of the team as well. Back with Andy, Booker, and Niall, they've taken shelter in an abandoned mine. Niall is stunned to discover it's filled with priceless treasures and original works of art the group has hidden over the centuries. While there, Booker opens up to Niall champagne of immortality, how he watched his children grow old and die while he remained the same. His grief lingers with him, century after century. But Andy notices something far more troubling. Her wounds aren't healing. Realizing something has changed, she drives to a nearby town and stops at a pharmacy for medical supplies. The cashier, noticing her injuries, kindly offers to help dress them in a back room. Suspicious, Andy asks why a complete stranger would help her without asking any questions. The woman simply replies, "Because I hope tomorrow you'll help someone else the same way." The moment hits Andy hard. It reminds her of the countless people she's saved and all the ones she's lost. Inside Merrick's lab, Joe and Nikki are restrained in metal chairs as doctors repeatedly extract samples from their bodies. Copley, watching with growing unease, tells Merrick that they've already gathered more than enough data, and there's no need to keep the two immortals imprisoned. But Merrick dismisses him coldly. He insists he'll do whatever it takes and won't stop until he achieves results, no matter the cost. Nikki tries to reason with the lead doctor, explaining that people have experimented on them before and it's never worked. But the doctor doesn't even acknowledge him. He just continues the procedure. Later that night, Niall wakes up from a disturbing dream and steps outside for some air. She finds Andy scrolling through her phone, lost in thought. Niall shares memories about her family, but Andy admits with quiet sadness that she no longer remembers hers. It's all faded with time. Moments later, Booker arrives with news. He's found Copley's location. The group wastes no time and heads straight for the address. Once there, Booker goes ahead to scout the perimeter, while Andy arms Niall with a weapon. But Niall hesitates. She announces that she can't go through with it. She wants to be with her family, to spend what time she has left before everything changes forever. Andy doesn't argue. She understands. She hands Niall the car keys and simply asks her to dispose of the remaining weapons on her way out. Once Niall is far from the others, she pulls over and opens the trunk, only to discover that Andy gave her the wrong bullets for her weapon. Back at the facility, Andy and Booker quietly infiltrate the building and head upstairs, where they quickly find Copley. With weapons drawn, they corner him, but just as things seem under control, Booker turns on Andy, shooting her in the side and pinning her down. Stunned and betrayed, Andy can only listen as Booker confesses. He orchestrated the whole thing, hoping Merrick might discover a way to end their immortality, to free them from an eternity of pain. Copley admits he too had selfish hopes, that Merrick might uncover a cure that could have saved his wife. But panic sets in when Booker realizes something's wrong. Andy isn't healing. Moments later, guards storm in and restrain both Andy and Booker. Copley protests, warning that Andy may not survive any testing. But Merrick is unmoved. Cold and obsessed, he orders them to be thrown into the same lab where Joe and Nikki are being held, demanding results at any cost. Meanwhile, Copley is suddenly confronted by Niall. She reveals her powers, proving she's one of them, and demands answers. Copley finally comes clean. He's been researching the team for years and uncovered the truth. Everywhere they've gone, lives have been saved and futures have been changed for the better. He believed that bringing them in would help the world. Now, he realizes he was wrong. Moved by Niall's determination, Copley agrees to help. Moments later, they arrive at Merrick's high-security facility. Copley gets Niall inside. As she reaches the upper floors, a guard shoots her point blank, but she rises again, unharmed. Niall pushes forward, slicing through wave after wave of heavily armed guards that determine to find her team and stop Merrick before it's too late. Niall bursts into the lab and frees her team, telling Andy that she's seen everything, the lives she's touched, the good she's done. Andy still has something worth fighting for. Though Joe and Nikki are furious with Booker for his betrayal, Andy cuts in, this isn't the time for arguments. They have to focus on survival and stopping Merrick. Together, the reunited team begins fighting their way through the facility. Though Andy is no longer immortal, she proves she's still a formidable warrior, taking down enemies with sheer skill and determination. As they push forward, an explosion rocks the hallway. Stunned but alive, the team regroups. Andy captures a guard and beats a confession out of him. Merrick is hiding in his office, but when they storm the room, it's empty. They hear the elevator descending. Merrick is escaping. Joe, Nikki, and Booker rush after him while Niall stays behind to protect Andy. But it was a trap. The elevator was a decoy. Merrick suddenly appears, wielding a fire axe. Thinking fast, Niall reenacts the trick Andy once pulled on her. She pretends to shoot Andy, causing Merrick to lower his guard. In a split second, Andy lunges, wrests the axe from his hands, and delivers a devastating blow. Then, Niall tackles Merrick with full force, ending the fight once and for all. Niall and Merrick crash through the window and land hard on a car below. The impact kills them both. Moments later, Joe, Nikki, and Booker arrive to help Niall as she revives. Andy soon joins them, and together they disappear before the authorities arrive. Sometime later, the team sits down for lunch without Booker. He waits outside, knowing they're deciding his fate for betraying them. Niall joins him and shares that they've arranged to fake her death to give her family some closure. Booker, despite everything, tells her she'll be a great addition to the team. Later, Andy approaches Booker to deliver his sentence, 100 years of exile, alone, no contact with the team. Since Andy is no longer immortal, it's likely they'll never see each other again. They share a quiet, emotional goodbye, sealed with a final hug. Afterward, the group tracks down Copley, but instead of punishing him harshly, they give him a new purpose. He will work for them, finding missions where they can make a difference and erasing every trace of their existence from the world. Cut to 6 months later in France, Booker returns to his apartment. To his shock, someone is waiting for him. It's Quinn, alive and free. And that's the full story of The Old Guard. What did you think of the movie? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss a recap. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.